Right. Hi guys, what's up? So I wanted to record a little video about my new book, Blue Hours. Kind of what went into making it, where the project stemmed from, and also the process of then translating this project to a book and why I decided to do that. Yeah, let's get into it. So Blue Hours was born several months ago, early September last year, when I was kind of going through a little bit of a rough patch in my personal life, when a kind of a breakup coincided with a lockdown being announced. And it was then that I kind of went back to where I initially started with photography, which is really to sort of just go on long walks and kind of like shoot therapeutically. And it started with these long walks during sunset and just after in like industrial areas that I hadn't really visited since I first started taking pictures. And this kind of state of mind of sort of loneliness and introspection really gave me this idea of kind of covering both the mind and the urban landscape and how it changes during this kind of like weird tumultuous year with COVID and everything. And I really wanted to kind of like show the beauty that loneliness and introspection and a deeper reflecting on empty space could bring. So this is really kind of like my first book that is basically entirely devoid of people. Whether it's just cityscapes with only a very small hint or index of people being in there. And it's a very different approach to shooting in some respects, but in a lot of ways it's really kind of overlapping with my other photography. And I think it's a very natural direction to, if you always take atmosphere first, to sort of slowly expand the ways in which you can tell stories. And to me, to tell a story not through showing what's there, but showing what's missing was kind of like a next step. And very quickly, while I was taking these images, I realized that there was this kind of like trend, both in a state of mind and in the kind of images I was taking. So far, so that it for the first time felt like I was really doing a project instead of just loose pictures that I happen to like, and that I really wanted to present them in a complete way. So then I kind of started playing with the book. And both the title and the concept came very naturally to me. It is the Blue Hours, both in the sense that it is the blue hour, as in the period just after sunset that's covered most, but also because they were kind of my blue hours. With blue being kind of like an emotional state that's not necessarily, it's one of melancholy, but not really necessarily in a completely negative way. This kind of like, I'd say productive melancholy or productive sadness, where you kind of embrace a lot of negative feelings in a way that they almost become positive and revealing of new perspectives. And I really wanted to create a book because I think that, especially now with COVID and everything, these feelings and this kind of like loneliness and soul searching and not really knowing what's going to happen next is just such a universal feeling right now that I think this book can really connect and hopefully also give people a bit more of a positive outlook and allows for us to kind of awaken to the beauty that comes with introspection and loneliness and the emptiness of cities and the opportunities we have to kind of like reinvent ourselves in this period of time. So that was really sort of the core concept. And then I started translating it to a book. At first, just editing, in InDesign, just trying some sequencing. And then as the months progressed, I worked on this for about 4 months in terms of pictures and going through several different phases of design as well. I discovered that I kind of wanted it to be I wanted it to be kind of like a large book. I wanted it to be fairly exclusive. And I really wanted it to be kind of like an experience that sort of felt like the way taking the pictures felt. I really wanted the book to kind of be like this photo walk where you kind of go through this range of emotions where, you start while the sun is out and there's some optimism, but it also, like the sun is almost too bright in a way. And then as it gets darker and darker, things get a little bit more dark, they get a little bit more grim, but at the same time they become more peaceful. And I kind of wanted the book to reflect how I went about taking these pictures and how I sort of walked the streets from sundown till late at night, for the viewer of the book to kind of have the same experience. So I'm going to show you a couple ways in which I did that, and just show you a little bit more of the book. All right, so let's get into this. So first, a little bit about the cover. So I kind of decided on this leatherette, faux aged leather cover. This is leatherette covering that's spanned over the hardcover, combined with like these gold letters. First of all, because just the general theme of gold and blue coming back, and it just appealed to me visually. But I also felt that it had a really nice mix of sort of kind of a little bit of a glamorous, luxurious feel, while at the same time remaining a certain serious identity, which I think goes very well with the photos, and with me as a photographer, who simultaneously doesn't really take himself too seriously, but also has this kind of like great love for the sort of visual appeal of it. So I'm really glad with how this turned out. As you can see, it's also quite a big book. So it's 37.5 by 30, which is really, really quite big. And I wanted it to be this way because the pictures are really meant to kind of dive into and walk through, and they don't really have this singular point of focus that maybe you're used to from my street photography. So I really wanted to be able to kind of like drift off through the image, and which you'll see fairly soon. So let's get into it. Another kind of like midnight bluish cover sheet, and then a little connects to my previous book with the same kind of opening, except with metallic gold letters and blue instead of red. And then the introduction, which you can read if you buy it, hopefully, and kind of already covered by what I just told you. And then the opening quote, which I think is really beautiful, by Albert Camus, and the idea of a city as a sort of desert, and especially kind of like the big modern city as this kind of place where you actually find it more easy to be lonely, is very much how I experience it. I think that big cities are to me about the most serene and lonely places on earth, in a really positive way. The bigger the city and the more the hustle and bustle and the more busy and hectic it is, the more it feels like a living sort of organism to me, and less like there's really these sort of separate things happening. It really feels like one organic whole. And that's kind of a feeling of both loneliness but also bliss that I want to convey in my images. So I saw the quote and I just felt it fitted it straight away. And then the book starts out with white pages and a single image per two pages. All images taken just around or just before the sunset, so almost more golden than blue hour. This is one of my personal favorites in the Wilhelmina Theater in Utrecht, taken from outside in. And it stays one image per page with a lot of space around it. And the image is still fairly small, which I think goes really well to make these images feel more kind of calming and comforting and more relaxed and a little bit less oppressive, which gives me the opportunity to later on expand kind of the feel and make everything a little bit bigger and more claustrophobic. This construction worker here on top of the high rise in the construction is the only human figure in the book, and it's easy to mistake for just another pole, which I kind of did intentionally. I really like that it's this lonely figure that's just all alone in this entire book, and it's also easily missed. Now the pictures are getting slightly bigger, although they still remain very calm. And here half of the page becomes black. And this is something that we actually put a lot of effort in, and it was quite a challenge to get. But the picture itself is not this big, but we kind of matched the darkest color black in the image with the pages. So you really get this kind of like seamless feel where this small skyline of Amsterdam, it's taken from the Amsterdam Tower, just kind of flows into the rest of the page. And then it's half black and half white for a couple of images. And then it's really sundown, This is the last little bit of sunset, and all of a sudden it's all black and it's all dark with these two different skies in more rural areas, kind of like shining through. And now we're really into the blue hours. And again, with the color matching, as you can see, this kind of like magenta-ish that comes back in the black. But really, the sun has gone down, and now it's more immersive and it becomes slightly more claustrophobic. First with single images. I also very deliberately chose to have these kind of like photo walk elements into it. I saw Alex Soff review A Walk in Asturias, a small book where you kind of like, it's just a single photo walk. And even these images are taken over like 100 different photo walks, I still wanted to have this kind of feeling where you are on a photo walk and you also see some elements of photo walk. For example, here you see the skyline in the reflection of the window far in the back, this apartment building, and then in the next page you are there, and it's close up, and it's taken on different days, but around the same time. And I really like this kind of idea of walking in, zooming in, so I incorporated that into the book. And then now go to more abstract images, and it's all black. And it also turns more red. I created sort of like coloring patterns throughout the book to give it some sort of connection. So there's different ways in which I try to achieve the feel of a photo walk, both zooming in, zooming out, like different places coming back from further and closer up, but also to create these kind of like coloring patterns that come back. And ever since I started this project, I've been obsessed with traffic lights. I don't think they're gonna leave my work anytime soon. I just, late at night when you still have some structure and still have some like, you see some light in the sky still, but the rest is all dark, and then you have these tiny red blobs that just fit to these geometrical shapes. It's just something I've really fallen in love with, and that I've really tried to or I've tried to actually avoid taking pictures of traffic lights because I feel like maybe it becomes a bit stale, but they just keep attracting my eye, and I can't help myself anymore. And there's quite a couple in this book that I really like. And then the first full page spread. I love this image, just the different kind of layers in it, and it's also it's very deliberately slightly kept dirty film. It was a way underexposed image on Cinestill 50D, like almost in pitch black basically, that I kind of pulled up, and you see these kind of structures and little damages that are in the film that were acquired from just pulling it back so far. The book, by the way, is a mix of digital and film images, taken on the Leica SL digitally and the Leica R4 on film. And again, a little bit more abstract. So really kind of sinking into the depths now. Images of different sizes, kind of rhyming. And then we kind of open up slowly here. We kind of creeped out here, and again we open up. Every time it goes a little bit between claustrophobic and open spaced, but with colors and patterns. For example, here the light strips, sort of connecting it, which I felt was a really nice way to keep some consistency while still going back and forth, and hopefully surprising you a bit. The suffocating green. That doesn't come back a lot in the book, but I like that it's here. And then the closing pages was just a very strong blue and orange color palette coming back again. This image was added very last minute. It was only taken about 3 days before the book went to the press, but I really wanted it in there. It's a very long exposure of just driving the 2 car windows, and just the colors kind of stretching out. Not something I've really experimented with before, but it just kind of came spontaneously, and I really like the way it fits into the book as well. It's really kind of like the last moment of the blue hour, of my blue hours. And that's it. So hopefully this reveal all will not discourage you from getting the book, but actually encourage you to get it. There's only 200 copies made, which, because otherwise it would have really just been unaffordable to create a book this big. And I really wanted it to kind of like remain this sort of exclusive thing, because I'm generally not a project photographer. I'm really more of a, I just take each loose image and not really work on a certain project or a certain team or a certain story. So I really wanted this to kind of like, you know, be something timeless, but at the same time, keep it fairly low volume so that it kind of like can sell out and it really freezes in this moment of time. I really like the idea of this project having ended and then sort of the book also not remaining in running, but just selling, being available during the time that it's like fresh, and then kind of being, you know, in your and mine storage forever, or on display, but no longer readily available. Just like these emotions and these images captured inside will not remain readily available. This really was very spontaneous, and I do not think I could take the same pictures again, and definitely not so many of them in such a relatively short span of time. So yeah, this is a little introduction of my book. I hope you like it. If you like content like this, please consider supporting me by buying it, for example. It's available at Mendo and on my own website as well. But you can check it out in the Mendo store. So if you're in Amsterdam and you want to have a look into it for yourself, definitely go by there and do that, because it's a great place, and it's also a really good place to have a look at this book or many other great photo books. So yeah. All right. So that was a quick overview of the book. If you have any more questions,